Thank you all for joining us today for the Preserving America for the Next Generation, involving young people in preservation, which is our final webinar of our 2026 Preserve the Past, Build for the Future webinar series. We're recording the session, and it will be made available later on our YouTube channel. Also, if you need closed captioning, please make sure to click on the Show Captions button within the Zoom window. I am Ashley Fry. I am the Director of the Office of External Engagement for the Advisory Council on Historic Preservation. And joining me is Lynn Richmond. She's our ACHP Communications Officer. Many young people may be aware of preservation efforts, and even fewer may realize it is as a potential career path. And without engaging the next generation, the future of safeguarding America's heritage remains uncertain. So, by making preservation accessible, relevant, and fun, we can foster a deeper appreciation for history while equipping youth with skills that connect heritage to their everyday lives. So today we're going to hear from panelists who are finding creative ways to involve youth in preservation. Just a quick word about us, the ACHP. We're an independent federal agency that promotes the preservation of America's historic places and advises the President and Congress on national historic preservation policy. The ACHP is the only federal agency whose sole mission is historic preservation. And a large part of our work is overseeing the Section 106 process of the National Historic Preservation Act. And this process requires federal agencies and those receiving federal funding or federal licensure to consider historic preservation when carrying out an undertaking. And you can find out more about us from our website, and we will put a link to that website in the chat for you today. And we're really excited to welcome today's guests. We have Molly Baker. She's a senior manager of the National Trust for Historic Preservation's HOPE Crew, which stands for Hands-on Preservation Experience. We also have John Hopper, who's the founder of the ACHP Preservation Society. And we have Ann Walker, who's the program director of the Preserve America Youth Summits. Welcome to all of our speakers. We're really excited to have all of you. Before we begin, if you have any questions or comments, please put them in the chat box. And once speakers have given their presentations, we will call on you to pose your questions to our panelists. All right, we're going to begin with Molly Baker. Molly, we're really glad to have you join us today. And I'm going to turn the floor over to you.
Great. Thank you so much. It's really an honor to be here to talk about our program. We're really excited to work to bring preservation and specifically preservation trades to a broader audience. So this opportunity to talk about that with y'all is just wonderful. Well, I would be remiss if I didn't first tell you about the National Trust for Historic Preservation, the nonprofit where Hope Crew lives. The trust has led the preservation movement for over 75 years by prioritizing four key goals: saving the nation's historic landscapes and built environment through site stewardship, grants, advocacy, and other initiatives. Additionally, we work to ensure that the full American story is told through many preservation programs that are offered by the trust, and by providing a national stage for untold, undertold stories and for underrepresented communities to share and receive support. We help build stronger communities through these initiatives, and we invest in preservation's future through many programs, not just Hope Crew. And here's just a brief example of just a few of those programs the Trust offers, in addition to a large amount of annual grants. I encourage you to go to savingplaces.org to learn more. That brings me to Hope Crew, my program that I'm honored to serve as senior manager of, alongside Milan Jordan, our director, and our newest colleague, our associate manager, Elizabeth. Hope is an acronym for Hands-On Preservation Experience, and we were founded 12 years ago with the goal of bringing preservation and preservation trades training opportunities to a broader audience. We do this through three primary programs: our Intro to Preservation Trades, our volunteer model, and our newest initiative, our Digital Documentation Fellowship. Our founding initiative was our Intro to Trades, which we still largely focus on through our program. It allows us to engage a younger and more diverse audience in paid preservation trades training skills. This includes anything from carpentry, window restoration, masonry preservation and repair methods, timber framing, ironwork, plaster, you name it, we've pretty much done it. And for each model, I thought it would be easiest for you to see how we do this by using a specific project as an example. So this is the TEP Center located in the lower ninth of New Orleans, Louisiana. It was purchased by Leona Tate through her work and through the assistance of a community development corporation. And this formerly was the school that Leona Tate, Gail Etienne, and Tessie Prevost desegregated in November of 1960, the same day that Ruby Bridges desegregated a school on the other side of the Industrial Canal in New Orleans. Miss Tate worked hard to turn this into an interpretive space to tell this story, a home for seniors, or a home for vital preservation, or I'm sorry, community nonprofits, and preserved the upper stories and turned them into affordable housing for seniors that had still been displaced from Hurricane Katrina. We worked with two local trades programs, New Orleans Technical Education Provider and the LA Green Corps, to teach their program participants preservation carpentry skills. At this time, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and have Lynn share just a short video from this program, because I want you to hear from the students' voices and from Leona Tate herself how this program impacted the community.
Hi, I'm Molly Baker with the National Trust for Historic Preservation's Hope Crew program. It's an acronym for Hands-On Preservation Experience. And we're here today at McDonough 19 working with local youth teaching preservation trades.
This experience for students working with Hope Crew has been exactly what we want students to do. Take their skills, go to a job site, actually put their hands on some tools and do some work in the real space outside of the lab.
I never learned how to install stairs, and it makes me want to go out there and work for more preservations and trades and stuff like that, and just be able to put in.
This was a school that was all white. It was segregated when Leona Tate, Gail Etienne, and Tessie Prevost integrated it. To have Leona Tate, one of those three little girls, now own this building that is named after a slaveholder is really the pinnacle of my career in what I do.
We were asked to take a seat on a bench that was like right on the outside of the hallway, and we practically sat on that bench half the day before they decided to even place us in the classroom. By 3 o'clock, their parents had pulled them out. They were all gone. And that left the three of us in this building for a year and a half by ourselves.
Leona Tate is a good person, and I really appreciate her for giving me this opportunity and let me understand, what she was going through at the time. Because it made me, start looking at stuff differently. Like, we gotta appreciate more, the people really be, putting a lot on the line to open up doors for us.
Well, if I can pull every kid on the corner to work with Hope Crew, I will do it. We'll find a way.
We were really excited to play a very small role in this much larger initiative that had incredible impacts on the community in New Orleans. This brings us to our next model that I'd like to share, our volunteer engagement model. This is where we take on large-scale, low-skill efforts to engage community members in spaces that matter to them. We absolutely love this example of Hinchcliffe Stadium in Paterson, New Jersey. This was one of the last remaining Negro Baseball League stadiums in the country, and it was sitting unused and neglected for some time. With generous material donations and support, we set out to invite the community to help clean up and paint the stadium. You know, the goal was, if we were lucky, to get maybe 75, 100 people to come out. And we were astounded when 700 people showed up and painted the stadium in one day. It really proved to local leaders that this place mattered to Paterson residents, and it led to a multi-million-dollar investment. The site now serves once again as a stadium, but in addition, it houses a museum dedicated to the National Negro Baseball League. And this next model is our newest model. This is our Digital Documentation Fellowship. We use this model to engage college students, primarily architecture students, but we've expanded to include other majors, but to engage them in an immersive multi-month preservation fellowship, teaching documentation techniques with new and emerging technologies. And the goal is to create more preservation-minded architects, and also to document important historic sites that tell the full American story. This example is really great, Camp Naco. It is a decommissioned fort that sits in the borderlands of Arizona, where the Buffalo Soldiers were stationed during the Mexican Revolution. We worked with 9 architecture students studying at various HBCUs across the country, and we used 3D scanners and other new technologies to gather point cloud data and create a site plan. Then the students were also able to submit a board to the annual Library of Congress Holland Prize. This is to ensure that this important site lives on in perpetuity in the records as well. Further, we were able to get, the students were able to get acquainted with the fort Adobe construction by participating in an Adobe restoration under the guidance of Indigenous experts. We're really proud that through these various models, in our 12 years, that we've been able to assist in over $20 million in preservation work, to engage over 3,700 volunteers, to train over 800 paid participants, and work at over 200 historic sites nationwide. We hope that we can continue to work towards engaging new voices and new audiences and these needed skills and in the larger preservation movement. Thanks so much for having me today, and I'd be happy to answer any questions after the other participants go about our program and hopefully how you can create a program in your vicinity. Thanks.
Thanks so much, Molly. Now let's welcome John Hopper from the ACHP Preservation Society.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. That's a tough act to follow, that's for sure, because all I am is a high school teacher that did a history project, and here it is. So I appreciate the opportunity to speak to everybody today about something that has become much more than a high school project, what became a simple living history effort with students eventually grew into a community movement focused on preserving history of Amachi and honoring the Japanese Americans who were incarcerated during World War II. And for those who are not familiar with the Japanese American internment, it was the most difficult chapters in American history. American National Historic, Amachi National Historic Site located near Grenada, Colorado, was one of the 10 confinement camps established by the United States government after Executive Order 9066. More than 7,000 Japanese Americans lived in Amachi during the war. When I first became involved with Amachi, the goal was fairly modest. I wanted students to connect with history in a meaningful and personal way. Instead of simply reading about it in textbooks, students began interviewing survivors and descendants of families who lived in Amachi. These interviews changed everything. Students suddenly realized history was not just abstract, They were speaking directly to people who lost their homes, businesses, freedoms, and opportunities simply because of their ancestry. The stories were emotional, personal, and powerful. Students began to understand that preserving history is not just about artifacts, it is about preserving and understanding the preservation of human experiences. As students became invested, the project naturally expanded. We started building relationships with Japanese American organizations and preservation groups who believe in what our students were doing. We worked alongside groups such as the Denver Optimist Club, the Amachi Historical Society, the Society of Southern Colorado, the Nikkei Jinkai of Denver, Colorado. All these partnerships were critical. They helped providing funding, guidance, and encouragement while the students participated directly in the preservation of Machi itself. They cleaned areas, they cataloged information, they restored structures, and they helped tell the stories of people who once lived there. One of the rewarding parts of our journey has been watching students develop ownership of the project. It stopped being Mr. Hopper's project and became their mission. They became historians, research museum guides, where they are now. They're at the museum right now. Preservationists and public speakers. They will begin not only making trips to states of Kansas, Oklahoma, and Wyoming, but to Japan to learn the culture and do presentations all the way throughout that country of Japan. As interest in the project grew, we realized we needed a place to preserve and share history. So we established a museum on our school campus. At that time, we never imagined how much it would grow. Eventually, we outgrew the campus location. We moved into an old city hall building. That was a major step. Today, we've moved into, about 3 years ago, we moved into a new building, which is much bigger, and we are able to do more and more on exhibits. What is especially remarkable is that students helped make this all happen. They gave tours, organized exhibits, conduct research, they represented our community with professionalism and compassionism. Over time, our efforts expanded even further. We now own 2 additional buildings in town that support the ongoing preservation of research connected to Amachi. One is the Amachi ARC Research Center. It's out of order, sorry. This building here, it's used now, we rent it out as office space. That office space helps fund our program as well. We also have the second Amachi bunkhouse. We fully restored an original Amachi structure so students can can stay there and do research on Amachi while staying for free. Another important milestone was developing a working relationship with the University of Denver, and many APS students work alongside the university researchers and scholars while they are here. This partnership gives students opportunity that most high school students never experience. They learn archival research, archaeology, museum studies, oral history techniques, and public history at a professional level as well. In many ways, the students became ambassadors of Amachi. They learned how to communicate difficult history with empathy and accuracy. They learned how to listen to survivors respectively, and most importantly, they learned that young people truly can make a difference in preserving our national story. In 2012, another major honor came to us when the Preserve America Stewards of Amachi, we became Preserve America Stewards of Amachi. It was under the Obama administration. That recognition validated years of hard work by students and staff and communities and Japanese American families who trusted us with their stories. Today, we continue to work to support the transition of Machi into the hands of the National Park Service. Seeing Machi become the national park system is incredibly significant because it ensures history will be protected and interpreted for future generations. It is especially meaningful that the Park Service currently rents office space inside our museum. That partnership reflects how far this project has come from a classroom living history project to nationally recognized preservation efforts. When people ask me what I'm most proud of, it is not the buildings or recognition, it is the students. I have watched students who were initially quiet become confident public speakers. I've watched them form lifelong relationships with survivors and descendants. I have watched them realize the history is not something distant and disconnected. It is something that requires responsibility, empathy, and action. Machi taught students that citizenship matters. It taught them the importance of civil liberties, constitutional rights, and standing against prejudice and discrimination. Those lessons that remain incredibly relevant today. Most importantly, students learned that preserving history is about honoring people. Every artifact, every interview, every restored building, every museum exhibit helps ensure the experience of Japanese Americans at Amachi and never forgotten. What began as a simple classroom project became an opportunity for students to change their community, preserve national history, and connect generations through their shared stories. And in many ways, we're still just getting started. We actually hosted a youth summit years ago. This is students doing archaeological work at the site. This is us restoring this particular koi pond that was in the 6H. The mausoleum building at the cemetery was in disrepair. This is us putting the new roof on it. And this is students actually K through 12 at our school restoring the cemetery at Amachi. This is that, working at Amachi with clearing limbs as well. They established signs a long time ago. There's Preserve America. Water tower founded on a ranch. Again, the students are the ones that made the call. One particular student said we called 43 different people when the rancher died, 43 different people to finally find the right person who said, get the water tower off site now. It's yours. We got it off the site. And then we had it restored, of course, with grants, put back on the original foundation, and that's what it looks like today. We also got grants for a barrack to be replaced on the original foundations. And we also got a guard tower tied to the water tower with more grants. COVID hit, we had to do something different. We did we saw this in researching the Machi honor roll. These are the men and women that fought for the United States out of Amachi. We decided to rebuild it. We have it currently on site. We do presentations. We've met, of course, Secretary of Interior Deb Haaland. That's Senator Bennett. They've come to us, and we've gone to Japan. There it is, students in Japan, learning and working with Japanese students as well. That young man actually works for Senator Hickenlooper's office today. There they are in Japan. This is us in our new museum, taking over our new museum. This is the new museum. Again, Senator Hickenlooper with our former governor, Roy Romer, and that is our current new museum where my students are today. And these are actually the ones running the site, the museum today. And I'll stay on for later questions. And thank you.
Thank you, John. Next up, we have Ann Walker of the Preserve America Youth Summit. Anne is also an observer on the ACHP, so we're really excited to have her with us today. Anne, thank you for being here, and the floor is yours.
First of all, I'd like to start with a thank you to John Hopper. He's an inspiration. And for those that aren't familiar with Grenada, Colorado, it's a small town. There's what, John, about 80 students in the high school. So to achieve what they've achieved, saving a very important national historic site is just all to your credit. So thank you to John and your students. I'm delighted to be here because youth programs have become a passion for me. I am a professional preservationist with a lot of years of experience doing policy, but there was no one doing youth programs. And so we started the Preserve America Youth Summit 20 years ago with the idea of providing these immersive, not field trip, but not a camp, but immersive experiences with middle school and high school students to engage in issues at historic properties. And it's been an incredible opportunity for both preservationists and students and teachers. We've done, in the last 20 years, we've done over 65 summits, and about 3,300 students have participated in 6 states and the District of Columbia, and we have made an impact. But what is a youth summit? Again, it's not a field trip or a camp, as Pranav could attest to, but it's very hardworking, immersive, very proactive, go to historic places and become completely immersed in their issues and ask the students to come up with ideas, as John Hopper students have done, ideas about how to save and share historic places. They get totally involved in the communities where we're in. And then at the end of the summit, they have to voice and share their ideas and opinions so that they're ready to become future advocates. For the exceedingly important point is it's due to our partners and sponsors and grants and fundraising, like the National Trust for Historic Preservation, that we can offer this program to students and teachers at a need-blind basis. So it doesn't matter what your financial situation is. You can apply to the Youth Summit and be considered to be selected. And it's competitive. So you have to write good essays and questions like you did, Pranav, for example. And that's how we pick the students and provide it as an opportunity. Students have used the Youth Summit to go forward, whether it's college, jobs, et cetera, by having something on their resume. So it's obviously helpful for them in their future. You could say one of the justifiable reasons for starting the Youth Summit goes back to the National Historic Preservation Act, which concludes in the preamble about why the benefits of preservation are important, is because they will ensure these places are maintained and enriched for future generations of Americans. I had the opportunity to chair several state historic preservation plans in 2 states, and 4 different preservation plans, 10-year preservation plans, included important priorities about engaging the younger generation and future generations, but no one was doing it, especially in a free program. Journey Through Hollow Ground offered a program about 20 years ago that was paid, and it was a great program, but ours are free for the students and teachers to give them that opportunity. It all started because of the Preserve America initiative, which John Hopper touched on, which was initiated in the George W. Bush administration when I was serving on the advisory council as an expert. And it really encouraged working with youth and creating volunteer opportunities. And I had the great benefit of meeting a teacher from Colorado with similar passion as John Hopper, Michelle Pearson, who's now in the National Teacher Hall of Fame. And she has an undergraduate degree in preservation, so it was made to order that she could do some of the student pieces and I could do the preservation pieces, and we started the Preserve America Youth Summit in Colorado. We've been 3 times to visit John Hopper and his students and other sites in Southeast Colorado. But why does it matter? there's so few opportunities in history and historic preservation and visiting historic places for students. Field trips have been cut back. Parents are crammed for time and money to be able to go to historic places. So it provides that opportunity. Also, we as preservationists know that we can become insular. So this gives the opportunity for preservationists to hear unfiltered, fresh ideas at historic places. Working with students is a very energetic cause, and students bring fresh energy and voices to what they visit and see, and it can be totally unfiltered. And as I'm sure John experiences it, but you might say, like, who benefits? And you would think the first thing would be the students and the teachers. But I would say, after 20 years, the biggest benefit goes to the community and partners, because they get to have that youthful energy and fresh ideas and new perspectives brought to their community. And for preservationists, it's easy to get buried in the tasks, but having students there is very enlivening, and they come up with things that are sort of out of the box. And of course, they're so good at social media and new digital techniques. So they bring energy and hope to preservationists and local communities. Notably also, the students are very effective at advocacy. We've done about 7 youth summits that have gone to Washington, D.C. We've been to state capitals in Texas and Colorado a few times. And you can do it in your local community. If you have a problem getting an appointment with an elected official, ask to bring a student. And suddenly they're all available and they want a lot of pictures. And we've had very strong success with the students in advocacy. We contributed language to the Great America's Outdoors Act and worked on that for several years. We've been successful in getting resolutions at the state level and ordinance changes at the city and local level. And U Summit kids, just as John was saying with his students, have met with secretaries of interior, governors, senators, representatives, mayors, and city councils. They have very effective voices and they're exceedingly passionate. If we adult preservationists can't get an appointment, take a student. It seems to work really well. And of course, the students and the teachers benefit. You heard John Hopper, how it's really helped him as a teacher to be able to teach history and get enthusiasm on what's in their community and a whole other culture, and the travesty of the Japanese internment. But it's very important to involve these students because they have this opportunity to share their voice and to be heard and to get out into communities and know that their voices matter, and not to be complacent, but to become good stewards in the future. The summits conclude with the town hall, which is an important part of the model. We want to make sure that the students can voice their ideas and opinions and know that they're going to be heard. So we conclude with the town hall with a panel of experts, but we also film it and record it and share it with broader audiences. And for teachers, of course, it's a total respite from teaching to the test and to be able to see students shine as they work on solutions for historic places, and offers 3-dimensional opportunities for teaching history or science with learning experience at historic places and archaeological sites. The impact is boundless, as you can see with John Hopper's students and about to hear from Pranav, but there needs to be more opportunities. The youth summits require strong partnerships, financial support, and are labor intensive to plan worthy programs. In addition to what we've been doing, the Washington State SHPO has perpetuated the youth summit model, and it's doing really good work that others might consider following. The most important of the component of the youth summit is listening to the next generation. And our students have spoken at National Trust conferences, even been a keynote speaker, spoken to NICSHPO, and spoken to Advisory Council. Invite us, we will come. And to speak about the value of the summits, I want to turn it over to Pranav. He's the perfect example. Thank you, Pranav. He's a high school senior, just graduated, and he came to one youth summit and became so motivated, he started a youth council in Arizona for the Youth Advisory Youth Advisory Council to the State Historic Preservation Office. So I turn it to you, Pranav. Thank you.
Yes, of course. First of all, thank you all. Thank you very much, Ms. Walker, for just having this opportunity for me to talk here today with you all. I think definitely one of the biggest things about the Preserve America Youth Summit that genuinely made me so engaged and willing to involve myself in historic preservation is just the simple idea that rather than just trying to learn and memorize history that we tend to learn in the classrooms, this takes it a step further. We get to experience and rather save the history by learning more about it. Throughout the Preserve America Youth Summit, which took place in Northern Arizona this past summer, we've seen things like from Williams to Winslow to Flagstaff, so many wonderful places that just have so much rich history and cultural heritage involved within them. And just the process of going to each one, doing work, and seeing those communities benefit from the work that we as students do, that sparks some sort of change within us youth to get that idea that historic preservation is rather a commitment to community and the willingness to change and support communities who need it. And at the end of the day, just every single experience I got from the Preserve America Youth Summit continues to echo this sense that we as youth want to make an impact in this world. We want to know where our place is and what we can do to change the world for the better. And rather just learning about the stories behind the bricks that make up these historic buildings really changed me as a person. And I think because of that, feeling so very much inspired by just how incredible this Preserve America Youth Summit was laid out and gave me the opportunity to be able to see what exactly historic preservation is like on the scale from our students. I was very much inspired, and so me and my friend Lois Valdez, we eventually came up with a proposal to continue this youth advocacy. We went to our state historic preservation officer, Ms. Catherine Leonard, and we were able to go ahead and propose an idea of having a youth advisory council. So this council's primary goal is to ensure that youth members across the state of Arizona are having constant representation in historic preservation. And it was just so inspiring to see this take shape, one by one, working through the political process of establishing the nation's first youth council on a statewide level for historic preservation was such a transformative journey. And now today, as a graduating high schooler who's kind of just seeing this initiative that I was able to formulate just from the experiences I got from one summit, I am truly just amazed by what summits like this, what engagement programs can do to youth members in other states who eventually feel and may experience the same things, what it means to preserve historical properties and, more important, historical stories. And because of that, now this youth council they're trying to serve and act as a youth advocate for historic preservation in Arizona, ensuring that properties from Tucson to Flagstaff are being accounted for, and that we are currently one of our most recent work actually is involving a museum in Gilbert. We are trying to support with them for their National Register for Historic Places nomination. And just having a youth component is just so incredibly important because it highlights that we as youth have a voice. We as youth want to make a difference. And the ability to take part in summits like this and just seeing the transformative journey of what students like me could do in bringing about change through councils, programs, initiatives, that is what the real power lies in. And for that, I'm very much grateful for just the opportunity to take part in this summit. Thankful to Ms. Walker and Ms. Pearson for hosting this. And at the end of the day, really just showcasing the power that we as youth have in making a difference.
Thank you, Pranav. We also need to thank Molly Baker of the National Trust for Historic Preservation and the Historic Route 66 Association of Arizona, who sponsored last year's Youth Summit on the Centennial of Route 66 and are also sponsoring the one next week, which Pranav, you're too busy and you can't come to. So sorry. But we will conclude with that and be totally open for questions. And Pranav, I'm reading in the chat that somebody has said Pranav for president, and that's not the first time I have heard that. It could have come up a few times at last year's Youth Summit. So thank you, Pranav. As usual, you nailed it. So thank you.
Thanks so much to you both, Anne and Pranav, for that presentation. And thanks to all of our wonderful panelists for their very interesting and thought-provoking presentations. So if you have any questions, please enter them into the chat box and I'll call on you to ask your questions. And I'm going to ask all of the panelists to come back on screen. Let's see. I'm gonna start with Chris Uradol. My apologies if I didn't pronounce your last name correctly, but if you'd like to form that into a question for our panelist, I'll turn the floor over to you.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. All right. So, I am in Mason City, Iowa. I am currently sitting in the last Frank Lloyd Wright designed hotel left in the world that is open and operational as a board member, but I'm also on the Historic Preservation Commission here in town. And I love this idea of involving the youth. And so, Anne or John, we recently had a new mayor elected who teaches at the school as well and is great at loves historic preservation as well. And so what do we need to do to be able to start a group like that here in our community?
John, you want to go first? You want me to go? I'll go until you're not muted. And Pranav, I'm going to have you chime in on this since you've just been very close to teachers for the last 12 years. I think the best connection would be to reach out to who are the preservation community leaders in your, like the Landmark Commission, if there happens to be a certified local government or somebody at the city level who's involved with it. And then find some history or social studies teachers or even science teachers. A lot of the science teachers are also very interested from the archaeology and the materials preservation side, especially with the engineering marvel of a Frank Lloyd Wright, structure, which does involve a lot of engineering as well as math and science. And I think going to the schools, if you can meet with a counselor at the school, we've had very good success with counselors, not just history teachers or science teachers, but to see if it might fit into a student activity at some point, maybe with AP students, or if there's an IB program at the nearby schools. They're always looking for extra things. And Pranav, you want to chime in, and then we'll go to John. We'll mute ourselves after that.
Of course, Ms. Walker. And just to add on to that as well, definitely the schools are a really good outreach. I would say another really good resource when it comes to, establishing communities and establishing these programs is definitely teachers who teach in the trade. So I have plenty of teachers who do something called CTE, which stands for Career and Technical Education. And many of them in my school itself, we offer various different programs from construction to welding to cabinet making and plumbing. And there are so many classes out there where teachers are constantly looking for opportunities to engage their students in projects. So if, in the process that you were to engage with preservation leaders who have projects or buildings that are up for renovations or potential historic preservation projects, definitely reaching out to CT teachers is a very strategic option. It ensures that you will find a good number of students who are interested in working and getting involved in historic preservation beyond what they're taught in the classroom.
You mentioned that your current mayor is a teacher at the school. Is that correct?
That is correct. And he's actually a history teacher.
Well, there you go. There's your connection on getting the students involved. But years ago when I did it, the first thing I did was go to the superintendent and ask if I could, because there was going to be a copious amounts of time needed to leave the classroom and go places, and that costs money. For us, it was miles and miles away. For you, it's right there, right now in that particular town. So, connecting with the higher level of the school with through your mayor would really work, I would think. And then you know, getting students involved and out of the classroom and doing something like this, I didn't find it was that difficult. What is difficult is finding the time that might be involved. And when I first started it was after school and during the weekends. And then eventually I'll be able to start a class, and I wrote a curriculum for that class. And you might be able to actually start a curriculum within your school for preservation, and that might be the place to go.
I want to add something entertaining to try, Chris. I first heard about the teacher Michelle Pearson that I partnered with on the youth summits because two students spoke at a national conference, Preserve America Summit in New Orleans 21 years ago, and two students got up and spoke, and they were from Colorado, and they weren't your students, John, and I'm from Colorado, so I chased them down and I was like, "That's so great you're here! Like, why are you here?" They said they helped write a National Register nomination. It's because of their teacher, Michelle Pearson. I tracked her down and I took pizza to her classroom. And I highly recommend taking pizza to the classroom because
Good plan,
she said,
yes.
I said, "May I come and bring pizza to your classroom, at the end of the day?" And she just let me clear it with the school and yada, yada. So I did. And that kind of made up a good network for future youth summits. Pizza lovers.
That does sound good. Well, there's a particular project that I'm working on now that's with a former church that's on the National Register already, but we're restoring it, and we're still in the infant stage. And I would love to have students come in and know how you develop a group, the steps you have to take to get the 501c3 and all the way through that whole process, and working with the architects and all the steps that it takes to actually restore a historic building. I have to get the other members of the committee to agree to something like that. But
Thanks so much. We have a couple more questions here that have been posed. Pranav, this one is directly for you. It says, what part of the summit made the biggest impact on you? And how many members are on your council?
Ooh, okay. So the part that made the biggest impact for me in particular has to be the town hall. At the very end of the summit, that's the opportunity for us as students. We've been working on, projects and creating things that Ms. Walker and Ms. Pearson kind of outlined for us at the summit. And throughout the whole process, right, it's just us just looking at places, understanding, talking to people, getting an idea of what exactly these buildings are about. But I think what makes the town hall so special is that was like the opportunity, the time that we as students had to talk to a panel of people, to talk to our audience members, talking to government officials, talking to people who genuinely were willing to listen to what we wanted to say. And it was our time to share our perspectives. What did we think of the Youth Summit? What did we think of the different places we visited, and all this opportunity for us as students to share? I think that's what really made the difference. That showed to us, I mean, as a student myself, that's where I realized that people actually care about the voice that I have. And I think that right there really inspired me to push forward, knowing that there's people out there who are willing to listen to students like me who have a voice and a perspective to share. So I'd say that probably is the most impactful part of the summit to me. And in terms of how many members on our council, currently we, including myself, we are a council of 8 students elected across Arizona. So I worked with the State Historic Preservation Office in the application process. So my counterpart Lois, she was the person who was going around and spreading it via social media and whatnot about apply for this position, and we got many different applications. Me and Chippa were the ones kind of running through the interview processes, checking the essays, evaluating them, and through a very rigorous selection, we were able to choose 8 students from, including myself, across Arizona, who were the ones taking historic preservation on on a very, very wonderful ride.
Thanks so much. Zoswana, you've got, it looks like three very good questions here in the chat, and I think that John has answered one of yours there. And so since Molly hasn't had a chance to kind of weigh in on some of the questions, can you go ahead and ask your question to Molly, Zoswana?
Sure thing. Hi. My question is, once a young person completes a HOPE experience, what pathways exist to keep them engaged, and have any gone on to pursue preservation as a career?
Yes, we've been very, very honored to say that our participants have pursued careers in preservation and in preservation trades through our program. Because we are nationally situated, we don't take someone all the way through the skills needed for them to be employed in a trade or go right into the preservation field. We think of ourselves as igniting that spark and aligning them with existing opportunities that are out there. So we're introducing them to other preservation programs. We are talking about the pathways for trades training if they want to continue in a specific skill, and we're aligning them with those programs through outreach, through making sure that they have access to those programs. But we, like I said, we picture ourselves as that spark so that we can get them to those regional programs that are accessible to them.
Thank you. And we have another anonymous question in the Q&A, so I'll go ahead and read that one. It says, what advice could any of the presenters offer to municipal historical commissions who may wish to help their school identify a worthy historic preservation project and to begin to engage in a community-based effort that would involve local youth in ways that everyone has described? So kind of to boil it back down, are there any specific unique features such as a project or proposal or features that a project or proposal should have in order to be well received or be approved or successful within this sort of getting the community involved in it?
I'll just weigh in there and say that projects that are selected that have some kind of public benefit are always going to be strong options for community engagement and for involving students. You're really going to get people on board to want to support an effort that has a public benefit. Largely, the projects that we pick are at public sites or sites that do have some kind of strong public benefit. So I would recommend that first when trying to select the site for students to focus on.
Thanks. Anyone else? Any of the other presenters would like to answer that?
Yeah, so if the question is how to engage youth in involving the local landmark commissions, we've tried to include some sessions about landmark commissions in almost most summits. And we've done mock landmark commissions before. And as a result of that, we've had a couple of students get on the landmark commission, and they were under 18, which took some look at the city laws. But so that's been really successful. But to be able to include some students, again, I think it goes back to what we were saying about doing some outreach, either to the schools, to the social studies teachers, the various counselors, but also Boys and Girls Clubs, Boys and Girl Scouts. They're always looking for different projects. So having, if there's a local landmark commission wanting to have a public benefit by engaging students, I think it comes through teachers or the service leaders like Boys and Girls Club and Boys and Girl Scouts. We've had a lot of success with Boy Scouts over the years and with Boys and Girls Clubs.
Another great audience is Job Corps centers. They're already teaching great trade skills, and this is a lovely layer to add on to the skills they're already learning to engage them in specific preservation trades. So I'd encourage you to go to your local Job Corps centers as well.
The other thing at high schools, a great opportunity is the career fairs. We've done that when I was with History Colorado, the state agency for history. We would go to job fairs. We put it in the work plan, like from the State Historic Preservation Office, go to the job fairs and just share like what jobs there are, not just going to become a preservation planner or an architect or an archaeologist, but you could be in the trades, or you even, maybe you're not going to work in it, but you could volunteer in it. So Pranav, I'm sure you had a lot of career fairs at your school because you're in a competitive school. So they're often held and they're easy to get access into, and you'll meet a lot of students and teachers.
Let's see. I kind of have a question stemming from what Zoswana had asked John about working with, the community that the site is important to. So when you're working with youth on preservation projects, what kind of training, advice, experience do you give them in order to sort of make those community connections, especially if it's a community that they aren't a part of or not familiar with? Or how do you work with them to bridge that gap with that community who's holding this site in significance?
I guess I can. We were a little bit more unique in Grenada for lots of reasons. Number one, there's 500, a population of 500, but to start with, we did have a not such a great working relationship with the city because they didn't have a good working relationship with the people that we were going to work for, and that was the Japanese Americans. But once you get the youth involved and get enough students involved, their parents are going to be happy and they're going to be involved. And once you get more and more people involved through that movement, then you can get people to change. And over the years, we've got a lot of people to change. And then the community comes on board with open arms, especially when they start seeing, wait a minute, now downtown we have a beautiful museum building. We now have a national park where thousands of people are now coming to a small town, which helps with taxes and funding and restaurants and everything else. So then the community all the way through the county starts getting involved, and it just grows and grows and grows. You got to start small and you got to work your way up. And sometimes it's very, very difficult. Funding is a key, right? And once we actually, in the state of Colorado, might be different than the states that some of you all represent or live in, but the state of Colorado, like History Colorado, historical funds, we work through the Preservation Inc. in Denver. They help us with grant writing. They've given us lots of support that way. So it's very important to make connections with as many organizations as you possibly can. I can't even count the number of connections we have. Conrad Hilton from the Hilton Foundation, hotels have given us copious amounts of money. So you have to make tons of connections. The Colorado Council of the Arts, you just got to keep working. And then once that gets all together, then you get more and more community members that see this, and then you're going to have a lot more involvement.
Thank for John.
I mean, that's what we did.
Yeah.
And that was through trial, and I had no idea what I was doing. I had hair back then, very young, and then, a lot of work, and things just kept falling in place, and that's what happened.
Thanks. Molly or Andy, you have an answer to that? If not, we've got a few more questions.
Yeah, I'll just add, working in a national program and going to, smaller regions, neighborhoods, different places as an outsider going in, building that trust and making sure that we're listening to the communities, and that we are, when we're finding local youth to work with, we're also partnering with people that have that story to tell about the community. So it's important that they're learning about the history of the site they're working on before we ever touch any piece of the building, driving home that this place matters and here's why it matters, and hear it from people in your own community why it's here and what its purpose is and why it matters to them. So ensuring that that is part of every project is really important to us.
Thanks. Zoswana, you had a question in here that was directed towards everyone about what sort of momentum is sustained after a program ends. So if you want to come off mute and ask your question of all the panelists, go ahead.
Sure thing. After a summit or program ends, how do you sustain that momentum? And are there structural gaps in the field that make it a challenge for enthusiastic young participants to find a clear next step?
I would say yes. And for a lot of reasons. And that's summits. We were able to do a long time in Texas and Colorado, thanks to the funding model. So we had a network of students and teachers, and that kept building. But then when you lose funding in an area, like when COVID hit, it's hard to reboot to get the network of teachers and students to respond, and just because they don't know about it, and so the parents are reluctant to send the kids, or something like that. At the more local or regional level, if they're doing it at home in their own community and not traveling to participate in a 24-hour-a-day youth summit, I think it would be easier to sustain. And Pranav, I'm going to ask you this. So with you going to college, or others, will you stay involved with, I'm not putting you on the spot, but I kind of am, with staying involved with the youth council, or how have you worked on its sustainability? One other question, thing I might note, which has been a challenge for us after 20 years of the youth summit, is students change their addresses. It may be in high school. It's better now. Everyone has Gmail. But, it used to be like it was their parents when they're in high school. Then they go to college and it's like, dot Purdue, whatever. And then they get out of college and we lose them often. We try to find them on social media. So we have a core of students that either work in the field or they're so obsessed and interested. Okay, Pranav, you respond to how to keep students involved when they go to
Right.
college, like you.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I think definitely when it comes to sustainability, as of now with the council, I am the only senior, so I'm kind of taking off and leaving the rest of the council within the good hands of my fellow members. I would say, however, when it comes to just this idea of how to keep people involved, I really try to make sure and start putting them on the spot. Like what I mean by that is, for example, I serve as chair of the council at this point of time. While I'm serving as chair, my role is not just to serve as chair of the council, it is also to ensure that my vice chair, my secretary, my rest of the teammates who are on that council are just as capable as I am to run the council by themselves. I ensure, and by this, I sometimes ask them the questions, I sometimes ask them to do things. And in a sense, I'm gearing them up, I'm training them to be accountable for themselves, ensure that even when I'm gone, that they can take that spot on for me. And it's a sense of stewardship in a sense, really being able to know that I'm handing off my position and as founding of this council to people who know what they're doing, people who are in good hands. Especially with now that SHPO is involved with our council as well, they are very much invested in keeping it alive. And because of that, I know that they will take great care of it and we continue to move forward on that front. Now, there will come a time in our lives where youth members will leave and they will go on to achieve great things out there, and really keeping in touch is an important thing. Preferably, I mean, within our youth generation, Instagram tends to be a very efficient way to keep in touch with folks. So if you all ever try to plan initiatives or community engagement with students who are my generation, I think definitely social media is a wonderful tool to use to ensure that we all can keep in touch, and that way we're not seeing people who may miss out on certain things. So that's how we ensure sustainability within programs and initiatives also amongst ourselves as well.
You.
Thanks so much to all of you for answering that question. So this is to all of the presenters and an anonymous question in the Q&A. So what was your gateway to heritage or historic preservation, and what was your starting point? What key steps did you take to build a career in this field? And then specifically to Pranav, do you see yourself continuously working in this field in the future when you go to college and your career? So, and I know, Pranav, things can change once you get to college and you find out there's a million other things that you can do with your life, but kind of right now, your mindset on that. So,
I want to add a subset to that chapter for you, Pranav, is what we found is some students do want to go into preservation, or we have one notable student who's decided she liked working with students so much she's going to child psychology. But it's an offshoot. But it also could be they could become stewards. They could become interested in maybe not have it as a career, but be the motivators in their community or on the Landmark Commission. So Pranav, I'm turning it to you.
Oh,
Future
yes.
and yeah.
Yeah, to kind of offer some insight on that as well, I would definitely agree with Ms. Walker here. From my perspective, I think my interests have always actually been in STEM. So I love history, love this idea of historic preservation, but my true sense of what career I want to do has always been in STEM. Now, I will say, even though I am going into STEM, there's so many wonderful hidden connections between STEM and historic preservation.
Absolutely.
Most notably, I am very much interested in environmental health, which is the understanding of how built properties and whatnot can affect our health systems. So as of now, I'm actually currently working on a project which is trying to evaluate historic buildings and their effects on our health when it comes to asbestos or any sort of materials, how they can affect our human health. And so it's just this interdisciplinary connections out there that we're able to use fields like this to merge with historic preservation because it's such a valuable space. And as someone who aspires to eventually enter medicine one day, I think just generally having a core interest in this idea that behind those buildings there is a story to preserve, a story to share, and a story to value. That right there continuously makes me understand the patient more and allows me to truly transform my career beyond just blood and patients and rather to the lives that we continue to save. So I think that's definitely the beauty of what historic preservation can do. And it's always going to be this wonderful career hobby thing of mine that I'll be doing years from now.
Thanks. And John or Molly, what is your perspective on sort of like that gateway thing that got you interested in history or historic preservation?
Happy to jump in. I was living in Wheeling, West Virginia at the time, out of school for many years, actually almost a decade out of school and looking for a career change, but found my interest in the historic buildings that were there. Wheeling at one time was one of the wealthiest cities per capita in the country. And when industry left, population declined, and we had a lot of vacant historic buildings. And we're left with the question of what to do with all of this vacancy, while meanwhile, many of these buildings were decaying. And I was photographing them, but realized that I wanted to do more than photograph these buildings. And I had a chance encounter with a woman that was studying specifically historic building preservation and restoration. And it just felt like this electric meant to be moment. I was enrolled in the program within 9 months and joined a young preservation organization, helped get it off the ground in the Ohio Valley, and just never looked back. I mean, it was just one of those moments where you feel like it was meant to be. I was really looking for something, and preservation was it. But I will say that I did not know it was a thing when I was looking at career paths. And that's one of the reasons why Hope Crew exists, is so that people, at an earlier stage in their career path and their process towards moving into their careers, we can let them know that, hey, there's this path over here. Come try it out. It's a great field. So that's one of the reasons why I love Hope Crew so much, is because we get that chance to light that spark earlier instead of someone like me that found it much after school.
Thanks. Much like you, I didn't know a lot of this was a career path until well into my career. So, John, do you have anything that you'd like to share with us on that note?
Again, I might be a little bit more unique. I grew up 60 miles from here, but I'm a huge history buff, obviously. But in my, it's just like the museum though, and when we do tours, the students do tours. Every object tells a story, and that is how I approached everything. Every building that we've restored, everything, just like the monument we just did for the service people that fought in the United States for the United States, even though they were from a confinement camp. That tells a story, and those stories need to be, passed on, and they need to continue through it. I've been at this now this is my 37th year. And I've had students that have moved on to do some wonderful, wonderful things, obviously. Have many of them gone into the preservation of sites. Some have worked with archaeological digs, and they've worked with other colleges. We did hire a history teacher that was once a Machi Preservation Society member, and he's the guy that took over for me because I am retired, just a part-time teacher now. He has taken over the program, and I'm hoping that he will continue on and take it to different heights and do other things with it. And he just got another grant to take 10 students to Japan next year. We've got 2 going this summer. And the whole object is to continue on. We have a barrack building one in Coolidge, Kansas that we're trying to get back now. We have a barrack building in Colorado Springs, Colorado that we're trying to bring back. That's even more important for the site. So we continue on doing that. We advocate for those places. These students try to make sure that everything that they can get their hands on for the museum is brought back to our museum to be digitized, not only digitized but cared for. And these students own it. That's the most important thing. I don't need to be at the museum. I show up once in a while during the summer to say hi and bring them donuts, which they love. But I actually had a little girl text me last summer and said, "Hey, former governor Romer was here." I said, "Well, why didn't you tell me? I would have ran over and talked to him." She goes, "Well, he's here so often anymore. Does it really matter?" So I mean, they own it. They do what they want to do with it, and they ask questions once in a while, but they own it. And I think that's one of the most important thing with youth, when they understand they own that and they do what tours and they do everything with it, they work very, very hard with it.
Thank you. We've come to the end of our time today. I want to thank our panelists, Molly Baker, John Hopper, and Ann Walker, and also thank all of you for being here with us today. As I mentioned at the beginning, the recording of this webinar and all of our Preserve the Past, Build for the Future webinars are posted on our YouTube channel, or you can go to our website to access those, and we'll put the link here in the chat to our website where you can find the recordings. And I also want to say, please take a moment to fill out the survey that's going to pop up when we exit the webinar. We do very much use the information that is provided that you guys give in your feedback to help improve our webinar series each year. Be sure to follow us on social media and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And thank you all again for joining us today and supporting our annual webinar series. And I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your Wednesday. Thank you.